The demon is an immaterial being, a creature of will and emotion given form by the winds of magic. They pool and fester at the shattered poles of the world, twisted places where the laws of reality cease to function and give way to the realms beyond. From here, demons are shaped by the favor of the four great gods of chaos: Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, and Tzeentch. Demons are an extension of their patron god, puppets molded and directed by the whims of whichever ruinous power has claimed them. Most are formed within the energies of the Aether, yet some were once living beings of flesh and blood. If a mortal is willing to walk this path of ruin, the greatest, most terrible among them might achieve a glorious moment of metamorphosis and attain demonhood, ascending atop a dark pantheon to become a demon prince. They leave their frail bodies behind and become creatures of pure magic, free from the burden of death. Such an achievement requires acts of unspeakable cruelty, a life spent in devotion to one of the dark gods, and a willingness to overcome reality itself. The rewards are without equal, but these beings will forever be enemies of the natural world. Every soul that dedicates itself to chaos seeks its apotheosis. Though for every champion to roar in triumph as a newly crowned demon prince, untold thousands will perish on the field of battle or be warped utterly into wailing chaos spawn. But those that succeed are creatures of unbending will and utter ruthlessness, who would tear the heart from the very world in the service of their own ambition. Yet all among their number still walk in the shadow of the one who came before, the first mortal ever raised to their exalted ranks. He is the Lord of Torment, the first damned, Be'lakor, the Dark Master. His is a name that has resounded throughout history, a shadowed hand twisting the strings of fate for as long as any can remember. He is malice made manifest, a mind of terrible intent that would see all, even the gods of chaos, torn down in his name. Who Be'lakor may have been in life, and from what mortal race he rose, has long since been forgotten across the slow march of time. The only certainty is that he was once a mighty champion of chaos, a warrior of peerless skill and unflinching courage. As his conquests grew in number, he drew the attention of the four ruinous powers, impressing each in turn with feats of intelligence, endurance, excess, and bloodshed. No mortal had ever drawn the gaze of all four gods before, and each desired him for their own designs. Through twisted dreams and whispers on the wind, the champion was drawn into the far north of the Chaos Wastes. He warred through lands of wild beasts and savage tribes, until he crossed the borders of reality into the realm of chaos itself. The twisted, maddening lands of the Aether are enough to break even the strongest of minds, yet the champion gazed on, unflinching in the face of the impossible made real. Impressed by his resolve, the Chaos Gods rewarded the champion by destroying his mortal form and binding him into a new form of pure magical energy. Each of the four gods gifted a measure of their power, creating a new and terrible force, Be'lakor, the first demon prince. Antecedent among demons, Be'lakor was an incomparable prize. The dark gods fought to claim his tainted soul, each seeking to use him as a playing piece in their great game and win dominance over the others. As this contest raged, Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, and Tzeentch all offered Be'lakor even greater power if he would only consent to lead their demonic armies to victory. The demon prince readily accepted these gifts, but he had little interest in the great game. Be'lakor promised each god his devotion alone, and played the bickering deities against each other. But in truth, he served only himself. When he had grown strong enough, he abandoned the great game within the realm of chaos, and fled back to the mortal world. Be'lakor's dark majesty attracted many thousands of demons and primitive tribes to his service, and he swiftly bent them to his will alone. For many years, his armies tore across the continents, throwing the fledgling kingdoms of every race, including many long forgotten, into madness and ruin. As chaos spread, so too did the winds of magic increase in intensity, strengthening his demonic hordes and the prince's own immaterial form. His minions built mighty edifices, great towers and thrones designed to gather the wild magic in great reservoirs for him to draw from. Be'lakor was worshipped as a god, and he reveled in his unmatched primacy. Yet, the Chaos Gods had not forgotten Be'lakor's betrayal, and each had resolved to put an end to this upstart creature's dreams of godhood. Be'lakor might have pursued his own designs, but his conquest had unwittingly strengthened the ruinous powers as well. With every city swallowed in demonic tides, or race driven to extinction, the creed of chaos spread, and soon other mortal followers began to draw the attention of the Dark Gods. None commanded the mutual respect of all four gods, but with every new champion elevated by Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, or Tzeentch to demonhood, Be'lakor felt his power ebb and wane. Slowly, his armies began to splinter under these usurpers. As the hordes of chaos paused in their sweeping conquest to struggle amongst themselves, the elves of Ulthuan conducted their great ritual to stem the winds of magic that were billowing across the world. An immeasurable vortex siphoned away the energies of the Aether, denying the warring armies the stuff of chaos, the power that kept their demons in material form. The demon princes, now numbering in the dozens, and perhaps even hundreds, lost control of their armies and collapsed into anarchy. Even Be'lakor could not hold on to the material plane. He was the last to be banished, for his connection to the mortal world was stronger than any other, but eventually he too was pulled back into the realm of chaos. Banished from the material world, Be'lakor was left a shadowy essence that drifted through the realm of chaos. He deeply desired to return to the material realm and reclaim his lost glories, but the Chaos Gods would not permit it. In a twisted irony, where once Be'lakor's potential had united the ruinous powers, his treachery had again left them in fleeting agreement. Unlike other demons who might escape the realm of chaos when the winds of magic blew strongest, Be'lakor would be chained to the will of the Dark Gods and only permitted to leave when they desired it. This was a gift they granted sparingly, and only to inflict greater humiliation. In the pantheon of the ruinous powers, Be'lakor's new role was to be the Father in Shadow. His only duty was to coronate and serve the Ever-Chosen, a mortal champion who had won for themselves the favor of all four Chaos Gods. It was the honor that Be'lakor deeply coveted, and the act of crowning his successor tormented him. Yet Be'lakor did not simply accept this indignity. From his confines in the realm of chaos, he whispered into the minds of madmen and warlords across the mortal realms. He promised them his unearthly power if they were to only perform a ritual through which he might be summoned. But Be'lakor's promises were as poisonous to these petty despots as they had been to the Chaos Gods. He would inevitably slaughter those foolish enough to free him from the Aether and pursue his own dreams of conquest. But Be'lakor's strength had been sapped, and he remained a shadow of the being that was once worshipped as a god. His ambitions were always beyond his ability. Invariably, the presence of a demon prince would draw forth a mortal champion to lay Be'lakor low and banish him back into the realm of chaos. There he would await the next ambitious fool to twist with honeyed words, or the coronation of the next Ever-Chosen of chaos. 12 times Be'lakor has left the realm of chaos to crown a mortal champion, anointing them as the herald of the apocalypse. 12 times has he been bound to their will to lead armies in their name. Yet Morkar, Vangal, Cardoon, Avasar Kul, and every other mortal being to bear the title Ever-Chosen has failed. To Be'lakor, Archaon, the three-eyed king, seems little different, and while he has performed his duty and placed a crown upon the 13th Ever-Chosen, he is driven as never before to not simply be the Father in Shadow to the newest Lord of the End Times. When the demonic legions march against the mortal world, it will not be to the whims of Archaon, but in accordance with the will of Be'lakor, whether the Chaos Gods wish it or not. For most, such designs reek of madness, but Be'lakor is like nothing else to ever walk beyond the Aether. He is a nightmare, a monster from a time long forgotten, when terrible forces roamed unchallenged across the world. In all the ages since, in the broken dreams of madmen, and in the atrocities they unleashed, the hand of Be'lakor can be felt. He is a creature wrapped in shadow, a force of ruin and destruction that seeks always to find his way back to the material world and tear it down, so that he might build it anew in his own monstrous image. He is a being of pure ambition, a soul obsessed with the conquest of existence itself. And yet, for all his twisting motives and Byzantine plans, for now he remains a prisoner, shackled to the whims of the Great Four and bound by their laws. Yet the time may be drawing near when Be'lakor is at last free again and beyond the power of any god or mortal. His strength is slowly returning in the shadows, and his plans have found their first successes. But the winds of magic are fickle. Be'lakor, the first damned, may yet arise as the fifth ruinous power of chaos, or he might simply be the first pawn in their never-ending game.
Thanks to Creative Assembly for supporting this investigation into Be'lakor, and for putting us in touch with the strange voice from the north. It whispers to me at every hour, putting words to desires I never knew I had. Desires like Total War Warhammer 3. Be sure to follow us on Twitch, as just like Be'lakor, we'll be battling across the old world in the coming weeks and months.